I want to share with you a passage from Mark 9, and it's a doozy. So buckle up. Here we go. I'll start at verse 35. And he sat down and called the 12, and saith unto them, If any man desire to be first, the same shall be last of all, and servant of all. And he took a child, and set him in the midst of them. And when he had taken him in his arms, he said unto them, Whosoever shall receive one of such children in my name, receiveth me. And whosoever shall receive me, receiveth not me, but him that sent me. Now, I'll pause there. We've all seen the cutesy little pieces of art with all the kids, suffer the children to come unto me, for such is the kingdom of heaven, and so on and so forth. But one thing that people don't understand is that while Jesus has a special place in his heart for literal children, in the language used at the time, the word was a simile for servants. Servants and children came from the same sort of idea. And whenever you see Jesus talking about children, or John talking about children, it could be that they're not talking about children at all. They're talking about God's servants. There's a similar lesson that I won't go deeply into in this video about the word brother and what it means. It doesn't always just mean some random other person. It can also mean someone who serves you in God's kingdom. But I'll leave that for you to dig further into. So, why did Jesus take this child and set him in the midst of them and say, Whosoever shall receive one of such children in my name, receiveth me, and whosoever shall receive me, receiveth not me, but him that sent me? Well, if you were there, you would have seen that Jesus didn't just take like a little baby or some person that was small enough to not have a choice in the matter. He persuaded a child to come and stand in the center of his disciples. Jesus elsewhere instructs us to be like children. And one of the ways we're meant to be like children is to have an implicit trust of, again, symbolically, older people. Little children, they listen to their parents when they're good. Good little children listen to their parents. They listen to their father. They obey their father. And they don't question him. All they need to do is verify that it's their father who's speaking. There are some very poignant examples from the scriptures about this. When Abraham leads Isaac to the mountain where he's going to be sacrificed, Isaac asks him, Where's the sacrifice? And Abraham says, The Lord will provide. And Isaac goes along. Abraham was an old man at the time, and depending on how old Isaac was, it would have been possible for Isaac to fight him off. But instead, he submitted. And when an altar was built, he listened to his father. When his father told him to get on there. And he told him that he was going to be the sacrifice. Starting this passage again. In verse 35, it says that Jesus sat down and called the 12. And he said unto them, If any man desire to be first, the same shall be last of all, and servant of all. What does it mean to be the least? Jesus said in another place, What you do to the least of these, your brethren, there's that word, brethren, you do to me. Was he saying that we should treat those who have the lowest station in society as if we were treating Jesus himself? There is some serious merit to that interpretation and that guidance. But there's a higher lesson, a more important lesson. Those who have consecrated their lives to the service of Jesus Christ are not to be treated the same way you treat other people. And the condition of that switch is their sincere service to their idea of what the Lord would do in their place. It's not your standards for religious belief or behavior. Paul said, "Who are you to judge the servant of another? Let him be judged by his own master." When a person stands up and says, "I only do what the Lord would do in my place," it should get your attention. It could be that that person is a liar. Jesus gave us a tool to detect wolves in sheep's clothing. The question is, do they give their life for the sheep? What has it cost them? The greatest prices aren't visible. They're internal. But they always co-occur with external prices. And it's enough to judge them by. Verse 36, "And he took a child and set him in the midst of them. And when he had taken him in his arms, he said unto them, Whosoever shall receive one of such children." What children? The children who become the least, who suffer the most by listening to Jesus, by enduring the greatest prices to do exactly what the Lord would do in their place. That is how they become the greatest. That is how they come to the center of the circle of disciples. "Whosoever shall receive one of such children in my name, receiveth me. And whosoever shall receive me, receiveth not me, but him that sent me." Jesus said, "No man hath seen the Father." He said he reveals the Father. Those who he reveals the Father to have seen the Father. When he said, "I have to go away," his disciples said, "Where are you going?" He said, "You know the way. I've shown you the way. I am the way." Jesus demonstrates to us what the Father is like. And his servants demonstrate to us what Jesus is like. Each and every one of us is more or less like Jesus in certain ways. And some people are more like Jesus in all ways. At any time during the existence of this earth, there is a person on earth who is more like Jesus in every way. And everyone else is more or less like Jesus in one or more ways. How you treat a person more like Jesus than you is exactly how you would treat Jesus himself. This is not a case of Jesus saying, "Hey, how you treat that person right there, this arbitrary person, I will count it as if you were treating me that way." He's saying the qualities of that person who you have found that is more like me in every way than you, the way you treat that person is exactly how you would treat me if I were there. Because in your view, I would be exactly the same. The in your view is very important. If we had another star in our solar system, which thank goodness we don't. That would cause a lot of problems. It would be either more bright than our star, brighter than our star, or less bright than our star. But did you know that our eye's ability to discern brightness caps out much sooner than the brightness in our star? Which means that if a brighter star than the sun was right next to it, they would look the same to us. That's called saturation in a sensor. Our eyes are a sensor. If a person more like Jesus than you was standing right in front of you, you would not be able to discern the difference between them and Jesus. It's not that there isn't one. It's that where you stand, you can't see the difference. You would treat them exactly like you would Jesus. You would see them exactly like you would Jesus. All the things about them that repulse you, that anger you, and you just wish they would shut up, you would think the same and feel the same about Jesus Christ himself. It's extraordinarily important to understand this. Now, continuing in verse 38, John answered him, saying, Master, we saw one casting out devils in thy name, and he followeth not us, and we forbade him because he followeth not us. So often, adjacent scriptures in the scriptures, adjacent verses in the scriptures, are completely related. They're successive. They follow in order on purpose. It's the same topic, but we separate them artificially. That's not always the case that they're the same topic, but it is in this case. Why did John respond to Jesus saying, Whoever receives such a child in my name receiveth me, and whosoever shall receive me receiveth not me, but him that sent me? Because he was saying we ran into some people that didn't do that. He knew exactly what Jesus was saying, what he was teaching, because his reply was, there were some people that we ran into and they did not treat us like they would treat you. They rejected us. Well, they didn't follow us, he said. Shouldn't they have followed us? He's saying, Master, if what you're saying is true, what about these guys we saw? And they were casting out devils in your name, but they didn't follow us. You see, he understood what I'm teaching you. He says, and we forbade him because he followeth not us. And Jesus said, Forbid him not, for there is no man which shall do a miracle in my name that can lightly speak evil of me. What he's saying is, everybody's in a different place. And to John, he was saying, you might not be the very next step for that guy. But if my power is flowing into him, into his life, he's on his own path. And eventually it'll come up and he'll get to that point. For he that is not against us is on our part. And it's so important to understand, different people can believe very different things and still be exactly where they need to be in their path towards God. That's not the same as cutting yourself off from greater light and truth. Because there's another verse where someone is speaking out against them. And he shows that that's not okay. But this guy simply didn't follow them. For he that is not against us is on our part. But if they are against them, that's the problem. Okay? For whosoever shall give you a cup of water to drink in my name, because ye belong to Christ, verily I say unto you, he shall not lose his reward. What does it mean to belong to Christ? It's to be born again. It's to live in complete submission to your sincere belief of what the Lord would do, think, or feel in your place. I should have said and, not or. What he would think, feel, and do in your place. If you come across someone who sincerely serves the Lord, even if they don't agree with everything that you believe to be about him, you need to be very careful about how you react to that. There's a reward for those who attend to the needs of those who serve Christ. And there is a consequence for those who don't. Verse 42, and whosoever shall offend one of these little ones that believe in me, it is better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck and he were cast into the sea. God hates people who do bad things to little children. But that's not what this verse is about. This verse is about treating God's servants poorly. And when it says offense, it doesn't mean what we mean the word to mean. It means to fail to attend to their needs or to obstruct their mission in any way. And their mission is to reveal more about Christ and to persuade others to be like him. And then in the subsequent verses, it talks about chopping off body parts that offend you. Jesus is the true vine. And those branches of the vine that offend him, that deviate from him in some way, they cut themselves off. They no longer are a part of the vine. This gentleman who was casting out devils in the name of Christ, he didn't offend the Lord's little ones. He just simply didn't follow them. He didn't leave what he was doing and follow them in the way that John left John the Baptist to follow Jesus. And Jesus is saying, well, he's on his path though. He's obviously still doing what he sincerely believes is best. He's doing what he sincerely believes I would do in his place. He's casting out devils in my name. It'll work out for him eventually. He's just on a slower path. But those that offend God's servants, they will be cut off. In fact, they cut themselves off. It's not something that happens at a future date. You have set up a barrier in the path of eternal life through which you can't pass until you reconcile to the example of Christ that you've been shown. These are vitally important truths. And I doubt you understood anything that I just taught you before I taught it to you. But now that you know, you're accountable. And I hope that you live up to what I've taught you.